Hey, DeFi holders, it is Crane, the host of the Oman Inside Crypto podcast. Welcome back to another Tuesday or Wednesday or Monday episode, depending when you are listening to this. Today, we are talking about a DeFi Index token and all the things that comprise part of it. As you can see, DeFi is currently sitting at $1.26. But before we get into it, let's talk about the TLDR for today's episode. And one of the things I was suggested to do by Cyrus was to give you guys some questions. So today's episode, we're going to highlight these few things, which is Chainlink keepers trigger me. Chainlink keepers are, and you guys know what Chainlink is, they're part of our DeFi Ecosystem Index token, but they do work as triggers in the crypto ecosystem. And you can think of them if you have an Amazon Alexa or a smart device at home, that you can set up Aave TTs, which is if then that. So if you walk in the door, it turns on the AC, and Chainlink does this in the blockchain environment. And I'm sure you can see, like, how could you guys apply that, right? The next thing we're going to talk about today is a Synthetix deep dive. Synthetix is one of the protocols that has been doing really well in Ethereum and does really well even in the bear market. Why is that happening? There are a lot of reasons for that. They do a wide variety of things. SUSD, right? Synthetix USD is their stablecoin as well. The other thing I want to talk about is Aave on Optimism, right? Aave is on Optimism. Optimism is one of the leading L2 networks available on Ethereum. Aave is still dominating, and you'll see that when we talk about DeFi Llama. What is the deal with Aave? Why are they doing so well? Why are they spreading everywhere? And what is the future for them? The second to last thing we're going to talk about is Lido competing with Messari Finance. So Lido Finance, of course, is the largest liquid staking solution in crypto at the moment, right? Because of STF, and the merge is happening in about a month, maybe less than a month. I believe it's September 15th. It is September 16th here for me. Lido is competing with Marinade. Marinade is the largest liquid staking solution on Solana. Is Lido going to catch up to them? A lot of this plays into sort of reputation, right? Somebody buys Coca-Cola because it is Coca-Cola, right? They buy new Coca-Cola things because it is Coca-Cola. And I think Lido has that sort of reputation asset where people are like, okay, I know about Messari Finance, but Lido is Lido. Lido got through the alleged depegging and that sort of stuff, and then they made it out the end of the tunnel. The last thing we'll talk about today is Uniswap's path to profit. So one of the things that Uniswap is doing, right, or they're going to vote on, is giving some profits to Uniswap token holders. And full disclosure, I am one of them. So is that good for Uniswap? How is Uniswap going to make money in the future? Because they're doing a lot of things, but we don't know, like, how are they making money? How much money are they making? These are all things I'd like you guys to think of today's episode. So let's get back to our DeFi Index token and look at what is going on there. As I said before, $1.26 as of the time I'm recording this podcast and YouTube video. And it's down about 1% in the last week. We had a really great rally, as you can see right here, leading up to this week, and things are looking really good. We've gone down slightly down and a brief pullback, but things are looking good. Total market cap is $156,600. Discount is 5.85%. Okay, there's the current overview of the DeFi index. These are the current constituents, right? So the thing to notice today is, right, Lido's governance token, LDO, is currently the number one constituent at 13.76%. Chainlink at number 2, 13.73%. Actually, all the constituents today are roughly about the same, between 10 to 15%. We have the graph on the bottom. 1 inch is no longer in the token anymore. But as you can see, Lido has two products inside there, Staked Ethereum and their governance token. So we're going to talk about all of these today. We actually don't have a lot of stories, but I do want to share some of this with you. So this explains the methodology. This explains when everything was started. And let's move forward. Let's talk about Ethereum's TVL on DeFi Llama. So as you can see, Ethereum's TVL is down 2% in the last 24 hours. MakerDAO is 23% dominant. Okay, Lido, number 2, right, down 5.27% in the last 24 hours. Uniswap, number 3. Curve, number 4. Aave, number 5. All right, these are related to Curve. Convex, number 6. Compound, number 7. InstaDApp, number 8. Balancer, number 9. Arrakis Finance. We've talked about them before. Check out our previous episodes, number 10. Now, one of the things I do want to let you guys know, to talk about, if you're listening to the podcast, you've probably heard this, which is what happened with Tornado Cash and what is still happening, how they've been blacklisted by the US Treasury, I believe is the correct term. And so That has had a big knock-on effect, and that is what the video you're going to watch right now is talking about. So please enjoy. As usual, if you don't want to listen to this, we can skip about 2 minutes ahead, and we will start talking about Chainlink keepers.
Ari, how important is that decision by the U.S. Treasury Department to sanction Tornado Cash today?
It's really important, and it's a really big deal. Kate, I would put this sort of in the category of the most important crypto-related sanctions that ever came out of the U.S. Treasury Department. And it's really just the size and scale of Tornado Cash. Essentially, Tornado Cash was sanctioned. And just to back up a little bit, Tornado Cash is what they call sort of a mixing service. And it's a way for users to anonymize transactions. Basically, they pool the funds and then send them out sort of the other side to ensure that you sort of lose track, or in order to obfuscate the funds. Imagine a mixer and you have a pretty decent sense of sort of what's happening here. But essentially, look, these types of mixing services, Tornado Cash in particular, has been a go-to tool to obfuscate transactions by cyber criminals, particularly North Korea. And North Korea has essentially used Tornado Cash in every major crypto heist, every major hack, really over the last year or so. And with this designation, Treasury is saying, look, enough. We cannot allow cryptocurrency mixers or any other businesses to facilitate money laundering, particularly money laundering from a nation state actor that's going to use the funds for weapons proliferation and other types of destabilizing activity.
Are there any legitimate use cases for customers using these sort of mixing services that could be affected by this decision?
I mean, my view is that as we sort of do more and more transacting on an entirely open financial system, there are going to be legitimate reasons why people want to anonymize transactions, right? You don't want someone looking at every credit card transaction you've ever done. That said, I think that what the government is saying here, what OFAC and what Treasury is saying is, look, if you are going to operate a service like this, even if there is legitimate activity, you need to have controls in place, whether that means sanction screening or other types of compliance tools to stop bad acts.
All right, guys, so today we're talking about Chainlink keepers, and here you see Polygon's Matic. You might think, oh my God, we're talking about our Pico token, but no, we're just talking about Chainlink keepers. But why I found this resource very useful from August 7th, right? So about 9 days away, is this explains Chainlink keepers very well. So it says you need smart contract automation if you want your DeFi dApp to be scalable. As the recommended automation solution on Polygon, developers can leverage Chainlink keepers to save time and introduce advanced utility to DeFi dApps. So a thread on how keepers work. Oh, okay. Smart contracts cannot trigger themselves, and centralized and manual automated solutions introduce a single point of failure, exposing smart contracts to security and reliability issues. Number 3, that's why many DeFi protocols are outsourcing smart contract automation to decentralized solutions. Chainlink keepers are decentralized automation bots powered by a time-tested network of professional node operators. That's very true. The guys or girls or whoever run Chainlink nodes are very professional. There's a high threshold for the way Chainlink nodes work. That is definitely something to take into account. Number 4, Chainlink keepers continuously monitor conditions and issue on-chain transactions that trigger the smart contracts functions. So go back to the TLDR if you missed this sort of analogy I gave. This picture explains it very well. Number 5, developers can make a smart contract keepers compatible with 2 simple functions. Check upkeep, the trigger. Okay, that's easily explained, right? Just like the trigger on a gun. Perform upkeep, the executable. Pull the trigger, things are executed. There's a little bit of programming over here. It's pretty easy to understand, right? If English is your first language, even if it's not, maybe you're a programmer, you probably have to know this. Number 6, and now anyone can use the Chainlink Keepers Job Scheduler, a new no-code automation tool to automate time-based smart contract functions in seconds. Well, that's really cool. No-code solutions are awesome. I used to use them when I was a programming teacher for kids. Definitely good things to look at. Number 7, the Chainlink Keeper network is decentralized, which bolsters reliability. Plus, all computation is done off-chain, which helps saves on transaction fees and enables developers to build more feature-rich dApps. Chainlink Keepers are popular in DeFi and Polygon, where automation is needed to trigger things like limit orders, automated trading, auto compound yielding, or settling rounds in prediction markets. Okay, interesting. So how are developers integrating Chainlink keepers to support the dApps on Polygon? Armadillo ILP, COTI Network is using Chainlink keepers on Polygon to help automate payouts to liquidity providers for their incurred impermanent losses. That's useful. Okay. And number 10, Civfund integrated Chainlink keepers to enable limit orders, development time while providing enhanced uptime and enabling on-chain monitoring. Okay. All right, guys, you can read the rest of that yourself. So from Chainlink's an explanation of Chainlink keepers, let's move on to Messari and the graph. So you must have heard of Messari before. They are like a really impressive research company. They do research analytics and a bunch of other stuff. So they are working with the graph, and the graph is very similar to Chainlink, who we just talked about a few seconds ago. So it says Messari expands subgraph utility as core subgraph developer. Access to the world's open data with subgraphs is scaling like never before. Messari, a leading provider of crypto market intelligence products, has joined the graph ecosystem as the first ever core subgraph developer to develop standards and innovate on subgraphs with a grant from the Graph Foundation, as announced at Graph Day. Graph Day was an event we've been talking about on this podcast for a while. Messari is dedicating resources to subgraph development and data standards in Web3. The Messari team will use this grant to grow their capabilities and continue driving towards the mission of open data via the graph. By building subgraphs to surface data, Messari provides their users with high quality, accurate, and complex data in their products. The Messari subgraphs are open source on the Graph network, fundamental to the vision of making subgraphs public goods data resources available to all. So this is interesting because Messari is a company, right? Their goal is to make money. So them working with the graph and open source tends to, and again, this is just my opinion, right? Open source does not work with company ethos of making money and being company and doing a business. So I don't know how this is going to work. Messari has already deployed at least 20 subgraphs that are live on the decentralized network, such as the Compound V2 subgraph that was recently deployed to the network, the Compound V2 subgraph that is relied on by members of the Compound Finance community, and DeFi Builders is a public good built by Messari. So I guess they have used the graph for public good. So that's interesting. The team at Messari aims to build at least another 200 high quality and complex subgraphs for Web3 protocols over the next 2 years. Subgraph developers at Messari are creating standards and leading protocol working groups to share best practices with other applications in DeFi and beyond. Messari continues to drive open source data standards and foster high quality subgraph development in the graph ecosystem. This makes me think maybe this is a long-term play, whereas Messari gets in with the graph, and so they have resources, they have the knowledge, right? If they develop 200 graphs, when crypto really takes off and becomes more mainstream, Messari has said, yeah, we've built a 200 subgraphs. Whatever you need for your Web3 company or even your Web2 company, we can build it for you. So I get maybe that is the long-term play. You see me looking left there because it is like thundering and raining at the moment, and that is why I'm looking left. All right, let's move on to our next piece of news, which is Lido Finance. So it says the dApps listed above let you stake your SOL and amplify your yields through a variety of different DeFi strategies. This is about Solana and liquid staked Solana as well. So as you guys know, right, on our Sully product, we are partnered with Marinade, and Marinade offers MSOL. And so with MSOL, right, is sort of the same idea of any liquid staking solution like Matic X, like Staked ETH, where you stake your Solana, you get some liquid staked Solana back, and through that you get to use it in other ways, and so you get to double dip, might be the terminology right there. This sort of explains what Lido is doing, and it's not new. This is just from August 13th. It's just highlighting this functionality because I would imagine Lido is taking advantage of the huge press behind the Ethereum merge and Staked ETH. This is something to consider if you don't want to use Marinade. Maybe you give Lido all your Solana and your Ethereum. This might be something for you guys to consider as well. But this is it, right? So here is Lido. So this explains the best yields you'll find on your staked SOL. So ST SOL, so staked SOL BTC were 54.86% APR. So this is with the Aldrin exchange. Aldrin are actually going to be on our next solely Twitter Spaces, so you guys should come there. ST Sol ETH, right, 54.12%, that's pretty good. Lido and Apricot Finance, ST Sol 13.92% APR, so you get 5,000 Lido as a reward. Lido and Atrix Protocol, STSOL and USDT. Wow, that is high. 58.44% APR. Lido and Friction Labs, 18.9% APR. Nice. So these are some options that you can use with your STSOL. I hope you guys have a look at this thread. As usual, right? Everything that I talk about will be in the notes for the podcast, in the notes for the YouTube channel. Let's move on. Our next story is about Uniswap. So Uniswap's COO, Chief Operating Officer, MC later on the incentives behind DeFi. So this has been a hot topic for a while, right? Is that yield farming or liquidity providing has always need to be incentivized. There's why are you giving Uniswap or SushiSwap or QuickSwap or Radium your money, so that because you get money on the trades, but usually if you're a small time person like I am, you're not making a huge amount of money by giving Uniswap this sort of funds, right? But that's why they incentivize stuff. That's why they incentivize it, as you saw with Staked Sol and Ethereum, or Staked Sol and Bitcoin, right? You're getting Lido governance tokens by giving them your liquidity on Aldrin, on other places. But at the same time, right, this is not a sustainable thing, is right? Those incentives eventually are going to dry up. And what is the hope is that people like me forget, oh yeah, I gave them $100, $500, $1,000, $2,000 and it's there, and now it's not making any money anymore. This is an interesting conversation. This is on a podcast that TechCrunch does. TechCrunch has not really been very crypto forward, but they're becoming more and more crypto forward. So it says crypto lending and financial services companies have been in the forefront of the industry's latest controversies ever since the collapse of the Terra stablecoin. This week on Chain Reaction, we interview Mary Catherine, MC later, Chief Operating Officer at Uniswap Labs, the team behind one of the largest decentralized crypto exchanges. You can listen to the full interview below. So it's not very long, 21 minutes and 32 seconds. It's a short podcast. It is the length that I aim for when we do our podcast. Later explain that Uniswap itself is a non-custodial open source protocol governed by holders of its Uni token. This structure sets Uniswap apart from its centralized finance platforms such as Celsius and Voyager, which holds users' assets in custody on their behalf. Okay, this is something Uniswap is definitely trying to emphasize because they don't want to get in trouble with government. And this talks about the fundamental difference in core innovation of Uniswap is that it let anyone create a market for anything and let anyone become a market maker rather than relying on centralized and specific teams to be market makers in an exchange. It says prices are determined algorithmically through Uniswap protocol itself, and the 0.3% fee users pay to swap tokens on the platform currently accrues to liquidity providers on the platform, while the protocol itself does not take a cut, she added. However, the Uniswap community is currently considering a proposal to add a protocol fee that would enable payouts to Uni token holders, a debate that has raised questions about what the decentralized exchange's path to profitability could look like. That's the part of what makes the protocol decentralized, is that this is all happening transparently in the open through a governance forum where all the people who would benefit or perhaps be affected by it can weigh in, later said. Okay, so definitely a podcast to have a look at. You should have a listen to this, have a read through this article, and something interesting, right? Especially Uniswap is poised to be one of the pivotal companies moving forward into crypto into 2022 and 2023. All right, let's move on to our next story, which is MakerDAO. MakerDAO co-founder plans to YOLO USDC into ETH. All right, so you guys have probably heard about this story as well, which is turning to cash. If you've watched the video, good, you probably understand what we're going to talk about. If you didn't watch the video and you're here and you listen to this, go back and listen or watch the video that I included in today's podcast. So basically what's going to happen, MakerDAO is thinking about dumping USDC because USDC is a centralized stablecoin, right? Many of the newly banned addresses were USDC contract addresses tied to Tornado Cash. And the stablecoin's issuers Circle toed the US line almost immediately by adding dozens to its own blacklist. Circle's move automatically rendered any USDC controlled by those addresses, collectively around $75,000 moot, practically valueless. On MakerDAO's official Discord channel, Christians said the consequences of Tornado Cash sanctions are a lot more serious than I first thought. Even though DAI would very likely depeg from the US dollar if MakerDAO ditches USDC, the risk is acceptable, Christiansen said. And Ruin might want to YOLO the PSM USDC into ETH. Okay. MakerDAO relies on USDC arbitrage to hold a DAI peg. Very interesting. DeFi's canary in the coal mine. MakerDAO's CEO Christiansen said is now realizing that by solving the stability problem, using USDC as a conduit, MakerDAO created another, arguably more dangerous threat. The USDC it receives is in theory subject to US government control. Now, of course, this goes against everything crypto is about: decentralization, not being controlled by the government or any government. Han Consalo stressed that this is not just a problem for MakerDAO, it is an issue for every single DeFi protocol that USDC assets as collateral. Okay, what if an automated market makers USDC smart contract that's actually the market ends up on the sanctions list? Han Consalo asked. So these are all very valid concerns, right? And this is a very well-written article by Bessie Leo. So definitely something to read and to take into account of, because if they do buy a whole bunch of it, that's definitely going to be a positive price action for Ethereum, and that's great for everyone who's holding Ethereum, but we have to see how that plans out. Now let's move on to Aave. The Optimism FND liquidity mining program is live on Aave v3. The program will run for 90 days with a distribution of 5 million OP tokens to the Aave protocol's Optimism market users. Claiming support for the rods will be active soon. Feeling optimistic. So they have a liquidity mining program, right, on Aave v3, so you get to earn some OP tokens. That's pretty cool. So if you're an Optimism user, if you're an Aave user, this is definitely something for you to take into account and maybe something for you to use. All right, let's move on to the last piece of news today, which is the most interesting piece of news, which is about Synthetix. So this is by our network Substack, right? It is their issue 132. This is written by Matt Los Quadro. Synthetix is a derivatives liquidity protocol. They're one of the main tokens of our DeFi Ecosystem Index. So it says Synthetix daily volume passes 200 million daily volume and 1 million in fees. Protocol fees and trading volume have reached all-time highs as perpetual futures and atomic swaps, we've talked about these before, gained traction. Trading volume and fees peaked at 200 million and 1 million respectively. This is it explained by Token Terminal over here. Over the last 90 days, Synthetix's volume has come from 4 primary sources. 1inch, Quenta, we have never heard before, Curve and Lyra. 1inch integrated SNX's Synthetix's atomic swaps in early June and now accounts for 67% of protocol volume. Whales and DeFi arbitrages use this feature as average trades routed from 1inch are roughly 850,000. That is a lot of money. The beta release of Synthetix perps has generated 3.1 billion plus in volume and 11 million in fees since its March release. Low fees and latency and optimism enable the onboarding of 30 to 40 traders per day. New markets are being debated through governance, as it is a proposal by the project's founder to incentivize perps trading. Hey, so very cool for Synthetix, very impressive. Hopefully you guys understand how well Synthetix is doing and all the data that's contributing toward it. This explains Chainlink. This is a newsletter you should be following if you're into crypto. That is almost it for today. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. It is a bit longer than what I wanted it to be, but yep, that is it. This week, Friday, we'll be interviewing Lorena and Amin. Amin's from Tunisia. Lorena is living in Switzerland, but she's Colombian. They are co-workers based out in Zurich. So we'll talking about beginner crypto questions. If you have any beginner crypto questions, right, please tweet at me, twitter.com/AmonKorean. Come to our Telegram or our Discord, and we will answer all of these on Thursday, Friday. We're recording on Thursday, so please tweet at me before Thursday. Next week, we'll be interviewing Matt Powers, the Director of Communications at O3. They were briefly in our Pico Ecosystem Index token, but they are now out, but it's still interesting to talk to different protocols. And that is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and see you this Friday, finally, for another interview, and take care.